All right. Welcome to episode two of 2026 Green Court Connection. So, in the first episode, you kind of realized that this year we're focused on the topic of leadership. Specifically, the title of this year's podcast is Beyond the Title: Why Leadership is a Responsibility and Not a Reward for Good Work. It's a pretty hard hitting topic there. So, today we are going to unpack some of the things that you heard Gabe Smith and I talk about on the previous episode, and we're going to unpack it in real time with somebody who's out there doing the work in government agencies. So I want to welcome a friend of mine and a leader in the child support space, Laura Van Buskirk, the child support director for Placer County, California. Laura, welcome.
Thank you, Jay. It is such an honor to be here talking about one of my favorite topics. And I already love what you said about leadership being a responsibility and not a reward. I think that will probably be a theme that goes throughout our conversation today.
Yeah, and it's so easy to say it, but you see it in the wrong way every day, right? I mean, you see people who they do exactly what makes them comfortable because they're in a position where they think they're allowed just to be comfortable. And that's not the point at all.
It's not, I say frequently, authority is not leadership. I think a lot of people think it's like this destination or something that they will achieve one day. And it's not really about that. It is, like you said, it's that responsibility. And I would say it's a daily responsibility. It's a daily commitment and a choice. Ultimately, for me, leadership is about people. It's about relationships. It's about helping other people grow to be their best. And so for me, it's this concept of if I'm truly acting as a leader, then that means I am focused not so much on myself, I'm focused on others every day. As hard as that can be, as challenging as that can be when you have so much going on, when you are in a position of formal leadership, like being, the director of a state child support program or a county child support program, like I am out here in California, there are a lot of things that come across your desk and across your way and things you have to work with and deal with. But it's about that focus every day about this is about people. I am here to help others grow. I'm here to help support them to be at their best. And so at the end of the day, I really think I'm my best if I'm helping others to be their best. It's about how I support others and how I hopefully help to inspire positivity in their lives, positive change in the program, in the decisions that others make. And it's a daily commitment.
I love how you said that. We share a very similar definition of leadership, which is what really you just unpacked. Mine is quite simply just influence. So influence is leadership. And I like to talk about it the same way. It's the act of becoming is the whole journey of leadership. You never wake up one day and say, I've made it. Like I'm the perfect
Right.
leader. Like that does not happen. Yet you see people all the time. We see some people. I've seen keynote speakers at conferences who get up there and their whole thing is like, I've figured this out. Well, you haven't. So for me, the purpose is to intentionally become a work in progress. That's it.
I love that. Yes. I think just continual. So I think one of the qualities that I think about, right, when I'm thinking about recognizing leadership or the potential for leadership to be activated in others on my
Mm.
team, is this willingness to learn, but also that has to be coupled with, I think, with humility. Like the humility has to come first of, I don't know everything. I have not arrived. Laura Van Buskirk has absolutely not arrived because I just refer to myself in the third
You
person.
did. You did.
Yeah, I mean, it's that humility of, yes, I'm in a formal position of leadership, but having the humility when I come here every day that I don't know everything. And sometimes, I think that's difficult when you first come into a position where you do have, a role in a position of authority over others. There's that pressure to feel like you have to have all the decisions, you have to have all the answers, and people are coming to you. And I think you can get caught up on that, and you can go to your head and you can think, oh, wow, everything, it comes down to me. I have to know everything. And I would really encourage those. And I say that, Jay, having experienced it.
Oh,
Like
me
I
too.
remember
Me
the
too.
first time when I became the project manager in Wyoming for their child support operations. I remember sitting in my office and having this like overwhelming awareness of, oh my gosh, all these people are coming to me
Right.
for
Right.
answers. And for the 10 years before that in the child support program, I'd been a staff attorney, right? Like caseload carrying attorney, going to court every day. That was my life. And so to go from that to people are now coming to me, I had that moment of, what am I doing here? Who
Everybody
put me
does.
here? Who made this decision?
Everybody
Um,
does.
and it was really though the recognition. I think what helped me was like taking a deep breath and realizing and reminding myself regularly I didn't actually have to have all the answers. And there's actually tremendous power and influence, as you said, right? In recognizing I didn't have the answers all the time, I didn't have to. And instead, using that moment, instead of feeling like, oh, I'm failing as a leader,
Right.
instead turning that around and giving it an opportunity to the people who are on my team of, gosh, I don't know. That's a really good question. What do you think about that? What do you think you would do? Right. And then I'm giving them that opportunity. I am honoring and respecting the fact that they have a lot of information and wisdom and experience too. And especially in my position when I went into Wyoming, because I wasn't from Wyoming. I didn't know the child support program. I knew very little about Wyoming. I worked really hard to learn as much as I could, as fast as I could, but I came from Kansas. So I
Right.
was born and raised in Kansas, spent my first 10 years in the child support program in Kansas as an attorney, and then here I am in Wyoming, in Cheyenne, project manager for 13 counties. It would have been fatal for me, I think, if I had gone into that position and been like, oh, I know everything.
Right.
Girl from Kansas who doesn't has never been here, who never stepped foot in Wyoming until she came to interview for this job. I have all the answers. That would have been probably my death knell very
Yeah.
quickly,
Yeah.
right? And so thank God I had the humility to recognize I don't know everything. This is a really successful program. Wyoming, kudos to them. They're still a really successful program. They have been consistently. And so for me, one of the keys to success was okay, I may be their leader, but these people are my experts and I need to
Mm.
work with them. And I'm here to support them, to help them to do their jobs well, which clearly they've been doing this whole time without me. So, how do I continue their success? How do I support them? What tools do they need? What do they need from me? And so, really making it not about me. Again, it's about them.
That's
And so,
so well said. I mean, and the humility piece is so key. And the moment where you take self inventory and realize you don't have it all figured out, and that's okay. And one thing you said reminded me of my least favorite saying. When people say fake it till you make it, I hate that. Do not fake it, and stop faking it once you have made it. Like, stop faking it. Just I think the best way to earn the respect and trust from the people who depend on you is to be vulnerable and admit, like, guys, I don't have all the answers, but I do know how to ask the right questions. And you
right.
open that can a little bit there, which is this idea of leading with curiosity, which I think is so important, right? Tell me a little bit more about how you view this idea that leading with curiosity is the right way to go.
Oh my gosh. I think, so it goes back to something you said a little while ago about, coupled with the humility is the desire to learn. And I think the best leaders that I look to in my life, the examples, role models I've had are those people who have such a desire to learn
Mm,
and it like a passion for learning that's insatiable, that never stops, no matter how far they get up the ladder, no matter what their salary, their position is, like it's not enough. And I think for me, it goes back to the value of humility. Like they know no matter how much they've arrived, they still can keep learning. And so I think it's that that stands out for me too. If for when I'm looking at role models, but also when I'm looking for people that I want to promote up, people I want to
mm.
encourage, that I've identified as leaders on my team or in my circle, it's that knowledge that they don't know everything, and it's the desire to keep learning.
Whew.
One of the people in my executive team just a few days ago sent me an email. She's like, "Hey, I've got an itch. I need to keep learning. Can I take these courses?" And I'm like, "Yes,
Yes.
yes, you can, please." And kudos to you for having that desire to keep learning and for reaching out and not waiting for me to come as your boss and say, hey, I think you can develop in these ways, right? The
Mm.
most successful leaders, regardless of position or title, are the ones who are humble, but also who have that insatiable thirst to keep learning and recognize that there really is no end to that.
Nope.
It's not, again, it's not a destination, right? Just like
Mm.
leadership's not a destination. You're never going to get to that place where like, oh, I've learned everything. And if you
Right.
have, Right. And I'm with you. I hate the fake it till you make it too, because I don't know what make it means. Like
Mm-mm.
that tells me there's a deadline. And for me, the leadership journey is you keep learning. And in our child support world, things are constantly changing,
Right.
whether it's local, state, federal, or all at the same time. There's always something more, right? There's always some improvement that you can make. And so I think one of our responsibilities as leaders is to recognize that and to just keep pushing, keep learning, and share that desire with those around us too.
So well said. And I want to dive into the you had your moment. And I think every leader, every successful leader has that moment where they are like, okay, this is real and I better get real about it. And sometimes those moments are positive or negative. Mine was I actually had to promote somebody to manage a team that I previously managed. And I ended up having to fire that person. And I convinced myself that they were horrible and they did a bad job. And a few months later, I realized I was reading a book and I realized they were a victim of my bad leadership.
Oh,
I
that's
did
big.
not I did not give them the tools they needed to be successful. And that person lost their job because I was an immature leader. Now I don't judge myself for that because I was 26 years old. So like, doing the best I can out here, right? But that was the moment where I said, I don't ever want that to happen again. That's the moment where I became very intentional about my leadership journey. And you mentioned your story. You were sitting in your office and you realized all the people that were depending on you. So what I want for us to spend some time talking about is what do you do when you have that moment? Like, do you read? Do you go listen to something? Do you find a mentor? Like, what are the ways you can, once you've decided you want to go on this journey, what do you do?
Yes.
Yeah.
All of it. Yes, right. I mean, okay, so absolutely find a mentor before you need one. I would say if you're not, so again, going back to everybody has the capacity for leadership. It's a daily commitment. Everybody should have a mentor. If you don't wait until you have the director position or the project manager position and you're sitting there freaking out, realizing everybody's
Yeah.
asking
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
like that's too late. Don't make the LVB mistake and wait. Uh, Plan for it because it really should be this daily commitment, this daily journey. And so I would encourage everybody listening, find a mentor, find a coach. And to me, they're a little bit different, right? I mean, the coach is going to be more asking you questions and helping you to have that like self-discovery journey. Whereas the mentor is going to give you more advice. It's been my experience. So I have both. I would encourage everyone to have both and reading. There are so many books, and whether it's a book, okay, I'm a word nerd. I love to read,
Okay.
love books. I have so many bookshelves in my house. It's ridiculous. And they're all stacked. So there's a lot of stuff on leadership that you can read, but it doesn't have to be in a book, right? There are podcasts. There's a ton of stuff on LinkedIn. There are all kinds of things out there. There are YouTube videos. Like if reading's not your thing, that's okay. Don't use that as your excuse not to learn. There's so much good stuff. And I would say figure out your brand. Like figure out what your values are, what matters to you. Pay attention to others who are around you, the leaders that you look up to, like watch them. So one of my little secrets that I'm going to out myself on was when I was back in Kansas. There was this attorney. She was the supervising attorney who hired me. So she's responsible for me still being here in the program. So you can love her or hate her depending on your thoughts about LVB. But she at some point stopped being supervising attorney and she became staff attorney again. So had a caseload she was carrying. And I would take advantage of every opportunity that I had to go to the office where she was based. So she had been based in the same office with me in Kansas City. She went to a different office. And I would like find excuses and ask, like to go to trainings or at a certain point to lead trainings. Like I wanted to be there because I would literally, Jay, go and sit outside her office. There was like an extra office space there that was for a receptionist at the time or a clerical staff. And I would sit there. And while I'm working, I swear you, I learned by osmosis just by listening to her. It sounds so stupid, but it's
No, it's
true.
dead on.
the way that she talked to people, like there was something about the way that she talked with them that I identified with very early on. And I just like knew in my gut, like I have something to learn from this woman in the way that she treats people, in the way that she responds to difficult phone calls. And you could tell, you could always tell in the child support world, like the other person is not in a good place. They might be a little bit agitated. You could tell they might be yelling and screaming, cursing, right? And I could hear that, but what I wanted to hear was how she was responding because she
Mm,
was calm, she wasn't condescending, she was so respectful and just treated these people like people.
mm,
And and I was fascinated by it because I thought, wow, like this is not the norm. At the time, unfortunately, I would say it wasn't the norm, right? And I realized there's something special about this woman and how she treats people in the midst of some of the worst, most stressful times of their lives, and
mm,
I want to emulate it.
mm.
And so for me, that was a part of my journey, was like, I need to be around her as much as possible. Now, looking back, I probably should have told my supervisor that this was what I wanted to do, and I'm sure she would have supported me instead of like clandestinely making my way over to this office. So that's a lesson learned. But I would say my point is listen to those folks, watch those folks, figure out what your values are, figure out what matters to you, kind of what your leadership brand is, and then look to those individuals who are already modeling that because there's so much that can be learned from that. And I would say too, though, the other important piece is don't try to be someone else,
Amen.
right? Like you mentioned earlier, the importance of authenticity in leadership. Your team will know, your colleagues will know if you're being fake. Again, it's back to the fake it till you make it.
Right.
No, don't fake it because everybody's going to know,
Yep.
right? So don't try to be someone else. It's a great idea, I think. It's a good practice to identify qualities that you want to emulate and spend time with those folks, talk to those folks, watch them, listen to them. It's not okay to try to become someone else. Figure out who you want to be as a leader and then just reach out to those resources to help you to build that brand and stay true to who you want to be.
That's so well said. And I'm gonna start calling you LVB now, just because it sounds awesome. Yeah, I think that's a key point. First of all, being having an open posture and intaking information as much as you can, and that's important because by being willing to learn, you have admitted you don't know it all. I think that's the key there, and
Right?
people see that. People see that. And secondly, be your own brand. I think that's so important because you know, we're all a story. Everybody has their own story. Just like everybody has unique fingerprints, everybody has their own story. So if you try to emulate another leader, they have a different story than you. So the result can't be the same thing. So I think that's such great advice. Have a mentor, but don't try to be them.
Yes.
Take as much information as you can and find out what sticks. I think that's so well said. When I tell my leadership journey, there are I learned and heard thousands of things, and there's about 8 that stuck with me, and those 8 are unique to me.
Right?
Right? If somebody else would have picked a different 8 if they would have heard those thousands of things. So I think that's so well said. I do want to dive into this. You mentioned seeing a leader who is leading through chaos, and chaos can be some grand thing, or it can be a conversation that's chaotic, right? So I want to ask you, like, when working in government and leading folks in government, things change a lot, right? There's new state laws, there's new administrations, and no matter how you feel about any of that, it creates chaos, and you have to lead through it. So, if you can think of a story about leading through chaos, or you think about what your mindset is when you're leading through chaos, what would that be?
So immediately I think of COVID.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I so spent the first 10 years of my child support career right in Kansas as an attorney, went to Wyoming, had an incredible experience there, learning and growing within that incredibly successful program with amazing people. Was there for almost 6 years, and then literally started my position here as the director of Placer County Child Support Services May 4th, 2020.
Ooh,
The pandemic had just begun.
yep.
So I decided at the beginning of a pandemic, I would pack up my family and move from Cheyenne. to Placer County, California, like, 2 months into the pandemic. And it was it was controlled chaos when I got here, right? Like there's always the change and the anxiety that comes with having a new director. But then COVID was chaos, and
Yeah.
it was chaos that was imposed on people, which I think is important to recognize too when you are like when you become a director, or you are leading a group of people. I have said for a long time, and it probably goes back to my history. My career before child support was in victim advocacy. So I have a lot of training on trauma and trauma response. And what made COVID, I think, so chaotic was it was a trauma. Trauma for me is anything that's done to you that's beyond your control,
Mm.
right? Whether it's a crime that's committed against you or it's a pandemic, you don't have control over it, and it's something that's happening to you. And so your trauma response is in large part about that utter loss of control. And we as humans strive to have control over our surroundings,
Right.
control over our daily lives. We like routine and predictability.
Mm.
And and so I came out here to this position at the beginning of that pandemic. And so that created chaos because people were feeling traumatized. There was so much unknown, and there was so much unknown at the federal level, right? At the state level, the county level, county leadership, because this is something we had not lived through before. And so for me, it was about acknowledging that, communicating to my team as much as I possibly could, like over communicating. And again, the humility piece of like, I don't have all the answers.
Mm.
Here's what the county is doing. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what our steps are. This is what we do know. And so just really working closely with my team, with my resources, staying in touch with the county, with my boss at that time, and then just trying to communicate as much as I could with my team so they did know what was going on, as much as we could predict, as much as information as we could provide, just getting that in front of them to try to help them to bring that anxiety down
Mm.
and creating that trust. I mean, so here's the hard part, I think, of my unfortunate timing is when you are in trauma response, you need a support network, right? Like there's all this research that talks about resilience and the relationship that resilience has, or the correlation that it has to the support network available to people who have experienced a traumatic event. Well, in order to have a support network, you've got to trust those individuals. And I'm coming in blind, right? They don't know me. I'm brand new, and I'm asking them to trust me.
Wow.
And they need to trust me because they need support through a traumatic event, through this pandemic. And I need support too, right? And I need to trust people that I haven't worked with ever before. And so it was really about how do you build trust? How do you maintain that trust? How do you communicate that? How do you keep people focused on doing the really important work that we do when they are distracted, when they are filled with anxiety? Because the pandemic was absolutely, especially at the beginning, there
Yeah.
were so many unknowns, right? Like I remember, so it started when I was still in Wyoming, and I remember the question came to me of like, do we stop opening the mail? Because people were legitimately afraid, Jay,
Yep.
that they were going to contract COVID opening the mail. It's like, well, we can't stop opening the mail. We still have customers we have to serve. But what do we do then to alleviate your anxiety when I can't tell you as your boss that you're not going to get COVID? Like, I didn't know.
Right.
And at the time, it's like, I can't answer whether you're going to get COVID. And that was the question that came to me is, am I going to get COVID by opening the mail, Laura? I'm like, I don't know. I'm not the
Don't know.
COVID expert. I'm like, I can't guarantee you that. But how do we balance that, right? How do we balance all these crazy unknowns in this chaotic world with this worldwide pandemic that's terrifying and anxiety producing when none of us had the answers? And for me, it came down to try to stay calm
Mm.
when I'm at work. Stay calm. Don't pretend to know everything. Again, don't fake it till you make it because you're not going to make it. So
Right.
just tell people what you don't know. Tell people what you will do, though, what the plan is for now. Over communicate. Try to be positive without being toxically positive
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's the fake piece.
Yeah. That's the fake piece. And I think God, you nailed so many good things in there. And I think The one thing I talk about a lot is a responsibility of a leader is to own your wake, right? So if a boat's driving through the water, the wake is what's created behind them, right? And a lot of times leaders will just push forward, push forward, push forward, and not own what they're doing behind them, right? And I think that plays into this conversation because the key is you were trying to help people be less stressed about the situation when you were also stressed about the situation, right? So if you're filled with anxiety and unknown and fear and worry, but you have to help others get through that. I think that's part of owning your wake. Like, you've got to in the morning
Absolutely.
take some inventory and be like, look, Laura, like, talk to yourself. We know you can use third person. Like, Laura, today's going to be difficult and I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to help everybody get through it, even though maybe I need some help myself. Like, how do you
Right.
balance those things to own your wake the right way?
Ooh, Jay, this is a question that really hits me because I am not the expert on self-care. I am learning. I have had a number of people tell me that this is not my forte and my strength and that I need to learn. And so I am learning. I've taken that advice over the past, I would say, several years. Uh, One of the things I think is recognizing when you've reached threshold and taking the time to step away, not forever, you got to come back, you got to take care
Right.
of your people, but recognizing that it's okay as the leader, and really I think it's beneficial as the leader. If you have reached threshold, you need to get either behind a closed door and work through that. If you can leave the building, if you need to leave the office for a little bit until you can recenter yourself. But I think again, it's the don't keep faking it till you make it. Because if you keep faking it when you or yourself are at threshold and you are having a panic attack, right?
Yeah.
You are going to explode,
Yeah.
and you are likely going to explode in front of your people, and that will cause tremendous damage to the trust that you were trying to build with them. And so just knowing, being very, again, very self-aware, knowing when you've reached your limits. I would say also surround yourself with people who are willing to tell you when
Mm.
you are freaking out and you need a break. And so I will share a story with you
Okay.
about being here in California. So my office is up on the second floor. I've got these windows behind me mostly closed, so there's not too much glare, but I have the honor of having windows and the privilege of windows all through my office and a beautiful view of most of the time it's California sun and the trees up here at the foothill of the Sierras. Gorgeous view, except for when we have wildfires.
Mm.
And I think it was, so I started in 2020. I can't remember if it was 2020 or 2021. I think it was 2021. I was here at the office and we had horrible wildfires that were bringing smoke into the area and causing ash to fall from the sky. And so the sky was actually like an orangish red and then gray. And that was all you could see. So there was no sun. You had a constant reminder. I had a constant reminder out my windows that California was on fire. And ash was literally falling from the sky, which is something as a Kansas and then Wyoming girl I had never experienced before. And my executive assistant at the time, her desk is right outside my office. And so she was here that day, and my door was open so she could hear me. And and I said something to her at some point, like, this is not normal. There's ash falling from the sky. I went to lunch that day and came back in and was even more anxious because I found that there was ash all over my black car and I'd never experienced that before. And I just came back in and I was a mess.
Mm.
I was just, and I remember her saying, it's okay, boss. This is normal. This is what happens. And I broke for a second, Jay, and I said, this is not normal. Because that's what I was feeling, right? It was this moment of fear and anxiety. And I was thinking about, my husband at our house just, 10 minutes north of here, but he can't drive because of his disability. And what if he has to get out of the house? And what about the homes, and is the office going to catch on fire? I mean, thankfully none of those things happen, but your mind starts racing as it does when you're experiencing something like that you've never endured before, right? And I said to her later, I'm like, this would have been like you going through your first tornado in Kansas. Like
Right.
tornadoes I got. Go to the basement, get the pets in the basement, have the flashlights, all the things. I can do that in my sleep and not worry about it at all because I lived that. I had never lived wildfires. And so she came into my office after I snapped, not my best moment, and she said, "You need to go home."
Wow.
And I looked at her and she looked at me and I didn't say anything. And she said, "You need to go home and take
Wow.
care of yourself." And she just took this moment and she didn't, she wasn't pushy about it, but she was firm.
Right.
And I said, "You're right. Thank you. I need to go home." And I went home. And I was able to collect myself and be back the next day and not be so filled with anxiety and panic so that I could be present for everybody on the team.
Mm.
But in that moment, I needed someone to tell me. And so when she left, she moved out of state, now lives in Texas, very happy living near Austin. And so when we were hiring to fill that position with my new executive assistant, some of my executive team members were asking, what I needed. And one of the things that I said, I must have someone who has the sass and the spunk and the courage to tell me when I need to go home, right? To tell me when I'm not at my best, because they're going to be sitting out there. They're going to be closer to me than anybody else in this office. They're going to have a really good sense of who I am, both good and bad, positive and negative. And I need somebody who has the wherewithal to tell me when I'm off my rocker and I need to take a minute to collect myself before
Yeah.
I try to be the director.
That is such a good story on. I mean, yeah, you could feel it too, and you were recognizing the way you were feeling, but you had somebody to help you make the right decision. That's important. It's. I think about some people think leaders aren't allowed to have bad days. I don't agree with that, but I do think you have a choice when you have those bad days. The thing that's non-negotiable is you have to recognize it. So first of all, you have to recognize it. And sometimes for me, I used to think that, well, leaders or executives or whatever, directors, supervisors, they don't cancel meetings. Like that, you can't cancel a meeting if you're a leader. So I would go to meetings knowing I wasn't going to be able to be my best self. And what was happening is I wasn't owning my wake because I was negatively influencing people. So what I've learned and what I've practiced a lot recently is I've got two choices. If there's a meeting and I'm not my best self, here are my two choices. Choice one is go to the meeting and start off by being vulnerable and honest by saying, "Hey, look, team, like I've got some stuff going on and I'm not my best right now, so I need some grace." Like just being honest about it. It's amazing how
Yeah,
a room will just open up and relax if you do that. Your second option is to just cancel it. Like just
right.
cancel it. That 5 years ago, that would have blown my mind to be like I didn't cancel meetings, and I got pissed at people when they canceled meetings. Right? It's disrespectful to your calendar. No, what's disrespectful is to show up the wrong way and negatively
Right.
influence people. So I think those are the choices, and you nailed it. Sometimes the right things to cancel the meeting or to go home. Right?
Right.
Sometimes that's the okay thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of the leadership journey for me too is figuring out that I can't do that all the time, right? But that there
Right.
are moments and reserving it for those moments when it's really needed. When
Mm,
really, yes, the meeting needs to be canceled, the boss needs to go home,
mm,
having that self-awareness, but also, again, surrounding yourself with people who will tell you when maybe, you're struggling. Do I cancel the meeting? Do I not? It's helpful to have someone who's in your inner circle who can say, it's okay to cancel the meeting. And for me, it goes back to the authenticity that we've talked about, Jay. And the vulnerability is absolutely, I think, a piece of that authenticity. You cannot be your authentic self. People are not going to trust you. They're not going to know you and respect you if you're not vulnerable with them sometimes. And that doesn't mean like sharing all of your stuff
right.
with your
Right.
team.
Right. Right.
Oversharing is a
Right.
thing.
Right.
But taking those strategic moments to be vulnerable, and even when you're canceling the meeting, saying to them like, "Hey, I'm dealing with some stuff right now. I think it's best for all of us that we postpone the meeting." And just being honest. People are not going to respect you or trust you if they don't know you. And one of the best ways that they will get to know you is if you are vulnerable, if you're human with them and you let them see that. And so, I've shared so many of the stories of my failures with my team, right? It's like, lessons in failed leadership. But to me, it's not really failed leadership. Like that's just being human and being willing to share that. I think then also takes some of that responsibility and pressure off of them of, oh, the boss expects me to be perfect.
Right. Right.
Nobody can do that. That's an impossible expectation. And I think that's one of the dangers we run as leaders. If we conduct ourselves like we're perfect and we've got all the answers and we never have to cancel a meeting, we never have to leave the office because we're freaking out because California is on fire, right? Then people out there on the floor are thinking, "Oh, well, she's fine. She's getting through this just fine. She's not disturbed by this. She's not worried about this. She's perfect. She's never upset, right? She never needs grace. So I should never expect to receive grace."
Mm,
There's a lot of value in being human so that the people around us can see that and know they get to be human too. And that takes
gosh,
some of the pressure off.
that is so well said. And I think about, you know, we learn more from mistakes than we do successes. And I think about early on in my career, which we're going to unpack this in a second, the idea
Okay.
of um of really great individual contributors getting promoted to manager and then expecting to figure it out on their own. That's an issue we're going to talk about in a second. But what when that happened to me, what I did was I thought that leaders were supposed to be invincible. Right? So I
Mm,
was invincible. I didn't miss a meeting. I was never late. I was the last one there. I and that's the example I was setting. I didn't take vacation. I need some me time days. Like I didn't do any of that. So what happened was my team felt uncomfortable doing what they needed. Right?
right.
Like I remember folks being like, "Hey, is it okay?" It'd be like January and they're like, "Hey, in April, I want to take a few days to go." I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine. Why would you even think that's not okay?" And the reason they thought that is because I never took any days off, right?
Right.
So it's just a ridiculous idea. I don't know where I got that. I don't know
I
who's
had it
responsible.
2 days.
I don't know who's
Maybe
responsible
it's a
for
lawyer
that.
thing. Maybe they teach us
Maybe.
that in law school. I don't know. I don't remember that class, but I think we both learned the
No,
lesson and
God,
now we're unlearning.
and I broke. I mean, I absolutely broke from a
Mm,
mental health standpoint. I absolutely broke, and like that will happen to you. Anybody out there who's leading and you think you have to be invincible, you may think that, but you will break. You will
yeah.
absolutely break. So I think being human, being authentic, being vulnerable is important. But I want to dive into this idea of I see this in government, I see this in the private market, but when it's time to promote from a team, right? The instinct is to go right to the best individual contributor, right? Well, that person's the best at
Mm,
that, so they would be
yeah.
the best to lead the team. Sometimes that can work, but I think you have to give that person the right resources and training to become a leader because the
Yeah.
title doesn't matter and your previous experience doesn't matter. So, do you watch out for that? How do you navigate around that potential issue in your organization?
Such a good question. I think what we say here a lot is we can train child support, we can't train character.
Mm,
And there is a strong recognition that we try to keep ever present in our minds when we're looking at promoting that the skill set to be a good leader is very different from the skill set of being a good supervisor of like the program side, right?
mm,
Or being a good child support specialist. You can be an amazing child support specialist. That's a completely different skill set than the skill set that's required to move up into a supervisory position to oversee the people who are doing the work that you're so good at doing. Because it's not just about the aptitude for the work, it's the aptitude to lead others. It's the aptitude to connect with others, to build and maintain relationships with others, to support them, to recognize what tools they need, to make sure they have those tools, and then to back away and let them do the work. And I think one of the dangers that folks run into when you promote the subject matter expert, they still want to be the subject matter expert.
yeah, yeah,
Right? Like that's, well, and I get it too. From a psychological perspective, I get it. That's where they thrived. That's where they succeeded. They got their kudos for being a really good case manager, right? And now they're going to supervise other case managers. And so there's this transition period where you have to work with them and help them understand, like, okay, you were successful in this position because of this skill set, but now you need to master this skill set. And I'm here to help you to do that.
mm,
But being still being the SME when you're supposed to be supervising the SMEs, like you're now getting in the way of those new up and coming SMEs because they're not going to ever become SMEs if you as their supervisor are still the
Yeah.
case manager, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a different hat. You got to take that hat off and you got to figure out what that new hat looks like. And it's a different skill set. And so I think, we try really hard to hire for the position that we're filling and not hire based upon how well someone succeeded in their current position. Because
Right.
especially if it's case management as an attorney, as a child support specialist, whatever that may be, a clerical position, that is a different skill set than being a leader and acting in a official leadership capacity in the department.
That's so well said. And I think that's mind blowing for some people. There's people out there who've been running companies and organizations forever just by promoting their best individual contributors. And some of them will succeed. Some of them will
Yes,
figure it out.
yeah,
But some of them will fail in a way that is so detrimental to their journey and the organization that you really can't come back
right.
from it.
Right. And really, I think it comes back to, again, the self-awareness. Like, you're absolutely right. Someone who is an exceptional case manager can absolutely thrive as a supervisor, as a member of the executive team, whatever that role may be. They can thrive in that position of leadership if they have self-awareness, if they have humility, if they're willing to learn, right? Like so many of these things that you and I have already talked about this morning. A lot of times, I will ask, my team is probably sick to death of hearing me say this, my executive team. I'm always and forever asking, are they coachable, teachable, and trainable?
Mm.
And it comes up in hiring. Sometimes it comes up when there's like a behavioral or a performance issue and we're discussing it and figuring out how do we support this person? What do we do next to help them to be successful? And I think it's, are they coachable, teachable, and trainable? To me, that makes all the difference in whether I want to promote someone. It makes a difference in how we proceed if it is, unfortunately, like a performance management issue. Because if they're not, then we need to not promote them.
Right.
That sounds kind of
Right.
harsh, but if someone is a really good case manager, but they are not coachable, teachable, and trainable, they cannot be taught this new skill set. They cannot be told and are not receptive to the idea that even though they are an amazing, high performing case manager, that they have things to learn in this new job, they are not the person to put in that position. Because you're right, it will be fatal, it will be catastrophic, not just for that person, but for the department and for the people within their sphere of influence.
That sphere of influence is so the reason this is such an important topic to me and the reason that's what we're going to focus on this year is there was a moment late last year where I looked around and I was like, man, most of the problems we see are just leadership problems. Like in everything, in a store you go visit, in a government building you go like that's the root. You can see what bad leadership does to people and organizations. So
Yeah.
my goal is to do a couple things. One, well, I'll start with this, and I'm never going to be an expert on this. And anybody who claims to be is an absolute fraud, right? So, once again, just announcing I am a work in progress. And that's what I'm hoping
Absolutely.
everybody hears from this. So, the two things is one, I want to eradicate bad leadership. And that's not by getting rid of those leaders, it's by inspiring them to take self inventory
Yeah.
because I was there. I was a bad leader. I was a natural born leader and I still was bad at it. Like, and I had that moment where I was like, holy cow, like the effects of this type of bad leadership on everybody around me is so negative. It's so negative, that sphere of influence. So one is to eradicate it that way by asking people to take some self inventory. And secondly, it's to inspire young leaders who are looking for more, right? To let them know that it's okay to not know it all. And by the way, you never will know it all.
And
And to
neither
give
do
them,
I. Neither do
no,
we.
no, and to give them some tools along the way. So I think they've gotten some tools in this conversation today. I want to end by asking you a question. And I didn't tell you this was coming. I really didn't tell you any of this was coming. This is about as natural as it comes.
Oh boy, I'm excited.
What if there were two, if somebody out there today was looking to, they've taken their self inventory, they realize they need to get better. What are two leadership books you would have them read?
Oh my gosh.
And it's okay to take a minute because this is
No, I don't need a minute.
okay.
I have my two.
Okay.
I have my two. I already told you I'm a word nerd. I'm a book
Yeah.
freak. I'm like, I got them. Okay, so one of my all-time favorite leadership books that I think gets to this idea about anybody can be a leader, that it being a daily commitment, and that has really practical advice on how you do that depending where you are.
Hmm.
So he talks about leading up to your boss, he talks about leading down to others who are technically, officially reporting to you, and leading across to your colleagues. It's John C. Maxwell's the 360-degree leader. See, I stumbled there for a
Yeah,
second
you
on the
did.
title, but it is the 360-degree leader by John C. Maxwell. I read that book in 2009 in Kansas as a part of a leadership program, one of the first leadership programs that I participated in the child support program. And it still remains one of my favorite books that I have read and reread. And so, absolutely, that book I think is fundamental to this idea that anyone can lead and it's a daily choice. And I like it again because it has more practical advice, right? Like some of the leadership books can be kind of theoretical
Right. Right.
and amorphous. I'm like, how do I do that? I love his book because he talks about the concepts and then he talks about like, this is how you live it. This is how you do this. So that one. And then the other one is The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. The ideal team player, man, I mean, for me, it's humble, hungry, and smart is
Yep.
the concept that he shares in that book. That's a lot of what we've talked about today with that the smart piece not being necessarily like intelligence, but more emotional intelligence, responding to and supporting others, having that influence. Sorry, my I
That's
thought I
okay.
turned off those alerts on my computer. Apparently
Hey,
not.
life goes on. This is real.
Mistake.
This is real.
Yeah. Uh, but that book, I think, too, is really good. And I like that one because it's written more as a story,
Yep.
but really makes the point about like these are the, and for me, it's relevant because those are the things that I'm looking for. It came up in a conversation recently. I can't remember now the details of that conversation, but my assistant director was in the room and we were talking about, the things that matter to me, LVB, as the boss. And she spoke up and she said, humble, hungry, and smart. She's read the
Wow.
book. She knows. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want. Those are the qualities that I want to emulate. I'm not always going to be perfect, right? I'm going to make mistakes because I'm also a work in progress. But it's such a good book, I think, for folks that are wanting to learn more about, how do I lead in this way?
Yeah.
And you're right. I'm like, I think this is an important way to lead, especially in a human service program. There goes life again with my computer. Uh, I really think it's fundamental. I think empathy and accountability are the two things for me. I would just say empathy because to me, accountability is a part of true empathy about
Yep.
caring for people. Unfortunately, I think we've gotten to this space where people think empathy excludes accountability.
Yeah.
And so I
Or
usually try to
empathy alone
deflect,
is enough, and empathy
right?
alone is
No,
not enough.
no, it's not. And so for me, I think that's the magic combo of positive leadership and effective leadership, especially in human service. And this book talks to that, but does it in a very readable way for someone who's maybe not a word nerd like me. I
Hmm.
think it's way more readable. So those would be my two.
Well, this is very funny. So I've got my two here. Okay. So the thing about my two is I have the same two authors in my two.
Shush!
Yeah, like this is, and
I knew I liked you, Jay
yeah.
Bland.
So, but not the same two books. Although I really like those two, and these are once again same information but different story. Like different things resonated with
Yeah,
us
yeah.
because we're different leaders. So my first one was John Maxwell's Five Levels of Leadership, and and the reason is the first time I read this, I threw it on the ground because it I realized how low I was,
Oh no.
right? Like that was the when I read it, I was like when I was reading level 1, I'm like, shit, that's me. Like
Oh
that
no.
like nobody likes to be level 1. Now, the one thing I'll say is just cuz you read the book, but just cuz you reach level 5 doesn't mean you're done. Like level 5
Right.
has infinite application, but to be on level 1, I was like, well, if at least I'm not on level 0, but level one's not good. So I hated that book at first, and now I love it and I
Ooh.
reread it. The second one for me, also by Patrick Lencioni, is The Motive.
Oh, I
Um,
haven't read that.
so
Okay.
to your point about ideal team player, it's a story, And this is a story about how some leaders, when they get their position or title, they think that is a reward for prior good work and not a responsibility. And I see that a lot.
Mm,
So it's about, just because you have that director position or that, CEO position, that does not mean that you can now stop doing the things you don't like. It actually is a responsibility to do more of those things. And you mentioned this earlier, like having those hard conversations. There are a ton of CEOs that I know who will just avoid those
mm.
because they don't like them, right? And because I'm the CEO, I'm allowed to avoid things I don't like. No, that is the wrong way to look at it. So the motive behind why you want to be a leader is a great book. So that's four
I'm gonna
books
read
for our
it.
audience. Yeah,
Thank
I
you for
hope you like
sharing.
it. And I want to thank you for today. I think the world would be a better place if we had more people intentionally going on a leadership journey. And you're somebody who's done that. And the
Yeah,
fact that
thank
you're
you.
doing it means you're inspiring other people to do it. So that butterfly effect is what I'm after here. And there may be 50 people who listen to this, and two of them may decide to make some changes, and that's a success.
I love that, Jay. I think, if I had a closing thought, it would be going back to the beginning when you said leadership is about influence. And I would just say and remind our listeners, regardless of your job title, regardless of your
Mm.
position and your salary, each one of us has extraordinary power to influence others every day while we're on this planet. And so, my challenge to them is that while we're here on this planet, use that power of influence for good. Do your best to influence the lives of others in a positive way.
You heard it. LVB and JRB out. Thank y'all.